Okay, thanks for joining everybody. I'm going to get started here. I know people are still trickling in, but in the sake of time and for everyone's Friday afternoon, I will I will get rolling. So thanks so much. We are recording this webinar, just so you're aware. And we're going to talk today about the DEC's Climate Smart Communities grants. Our Capital District Regional Planning Commission sustainability team is here. Myself, Tara Donadio, Josh Drainoff, and Haley Belkanoff to talk about these grants and how we can provide free technical support to you through this process. Just a bit of housekeeping. We are going to take questions, but we'll do that at the very end. So just you can put them in the chat as we go along, but we just want to keep a flow here. So yeah, so let's get started. Let's see. Okay, so here's our team here. Myself, Haley, Josh, and our Director of Sustainability, Todd Fabozzi. We work in the capital region, so Albany, Rensselaer, Schenectady, Saratoga, Columbia, Green, Warren, and Washington counties. Haley, Josh, and I kind of split up that territory, and we provide free technical support to communities for clean energy, climate smart related actions. We're funded by the DEC and NYSERDA to do this work. And today we're going to talk about the Climate Smart program and the Climate Smart grants and kind of how we focus on that piece of the work. So you'll see on the map here on the right-hand side, this is all the communities that are participating in the Climate Smart Communities program or are certified in the region. We're proud to say 24 communities are bronze certified and 34 have adopted a pledge to start this program. We provide some free technical support to communities to get a pledge adopted, to get registered, understand the point structure, plan for the points for certification. For those that aren't aware, this is a recognition program that the DEC administers that basically rewards communities for adopting climate smart actions. We also provide greenhouse gas inventories and climate action planning as part of our suite of services, free services here. We also do grant support for this program, of course, what we're talking about today, as well as the ZEV rebates and the Clean Energy Communities program, which is a NYSERDA program that provides match-free grants for energy-related projects. So we can be your grant navigators. Please feel free to reach out if you haven't connected with us already. So on to the task at hand, the Climate Smart Communities grants. So these grants were released on May 23rd, which is typically the time that they're announced about every year. Since 2016, this has been happening. And they're due on July, not around, on July 28th. So it's a very short time frame, but they do come out every year, and a lot of communities do plan in advance knowing that this is going to happen. So if you haven't started thinking about it this year, maybe this is a next year project, but still really good to be kind of aware. Funding is only for municipalities, cities, towns, villages, and counties. There's 8 million total available, a 50% match required, which I'll go into in a minute. They don't need to be involved in the Climate Smart Communities program, but they can, and I'll explain why that's important in a minute. You can collaborate with other municipalities on these grants, and they do need to be about 5 years or less time frame, so not long-term projects. You'll see there, I dropped a link in there. It's the DEC's Climate Smart Communities grants page where the ZEV rebates are listed. There's the whole request for applications on there if you're looking for some light reading material, but you can really dive into a lot of the details that we're kind of only going to touch on today. So just a high-level overview. The Climate Smart grants are implementation or certification categories. Within the implementation, there's greenhouse gas mitigation and adaptation projects. Josh and Haley are going to go into those a bit deeper, but that's just for some information as I kind of explain to you how scoring and things like that work. And something that I found out when doing my research, since 2016, this program has existed, this grant program, and 9 million has gone to the capital region for these grants. But it's only been a few communities that have been taking advantage of this. There's only 14 communities that have gotten all 9 million of those dollars. So a lot of municipalities, there's 173 municipalities in the capital region, haven't really tapped into this yet. So we're hoping that this webinar will inspire some more applicants. So moving on to the match, there is a 50% match required for this program. An example would be a $100,000 project, 50 to the community, 50 or 50 from the community, 50 from the grant. All match has to be identified in the application, so it needs to be like understood and pre-planned. You can of course provide CAS match, that's totally fine. In kind is sometimes more doable. Personnel, real property, equipment use, volunteer time, which is calculated at a minimum wage rate, and then donated professional services, which would be like a lawyer that might donate their time to help at their rate. Not eligible, ZEV vehicles, because those are part of the ZEV application. Power sector related greenhouse gases. So this actually can be covered in the Clean Energy Communities program. Generators, land, indirect cost, elected official salary, fundraising, a whole host of things that aren't eligible. And then most importantly, not eligible is New York State grants or federal funds can't match this. So just awareness for planning, you know, those are great. There's a lot of grants out there right now. So it's just a matter of understanding that you can't combine these two. So dropping into the scoring piece, this is a critical piece and helps you understand where you'll stand. These grants are competitive. They do get more competitive every year. We hear from the DECs, so just being aware of how to make sure your score is the best it can be. Projects have to demonstrate the ability to identify, mitigate, and or adapt to climate change vulnerability and risk, or demonstrate potential to reduce greenhouse gases. So obviously that's the defining piece of this whole thing. The application has to score a minimum of 55 points, but there's a possible 100 points here, see listed here. Certification and implementation points are a little bit different, very much the same, both obviously 100-point threshold maximum, but I'm going to focus on two things here, how your CSC status can help you, as well as how your disadvantaged community status can help you with these grants. So question or thing I brought up earlier is their climate smart community certification. Are you pledged? You don't have to be, again, to participate in this program, but it helps to be. So you see you get 0 points in this area if you're not. This is actually just for the certification grants. The implementation grants do have up to 8 points as well, but they're a little bit just slightly different because of the total number of points in that scoring criteria. But if you're registered, you just automatically get 3 points. That's adopting a pledge. If you're certified, you get 6, and then silver certified, you get 8. So you can definitely see it helps to be a part of this program. And then to the disadvantaged communities status or median household income information. So New York State, as part of the Climate Act, has directed, basically the program has to direct or invest resources to 40% and at 40% to disadvantaged communities. They've defined these communities on a map, these tracks, and if your municipality includes one of these, you could get extra points in these programs. So it's important to know if you're on that list. I'm going to provide that list on the next screen. But for certification criteria, it's based on the percentage of your population that is disadvantaged, which they've calculated for you. They've done that work. And for the implementation grants, it's whether or not the actual project is within a disadvantaged community tract, which you'd have to map. Additionally, you can get points for having if you're not a disadvantaged, if you don't have a disadvantaged community in your median household income for your community is within certain thresholds, you could potentially get points as well. So here's the list of communities in the capital region that fall into that disadvantaged community criteria or do have a tract. If you have 100% on here, you get up to 15 points. And then it's down to, I think, 2 points for some of the lower percentage points. And this would apply to you. And then again, for the implementation grants, if the project is within the tract that's disadvantaged, which you can find online, you can that project would get you 10 extra points. There is a little bit of mapping. It's through the DC info locator, so it's all very easy, but we can again provide some technical support to help you figure out how to do this, and they do lay it out really well in the RFA. And then last but not least, if you're not a DAC and there are communities that aren't, but fall into this kind of median household income threshold being less than 60,125, or in the next kind of category up. I did pull up the town of Hunter, who does fall into that category on the American Community Survey. And the ACS is what that's called for short. And again, it's a pretty easy process and they walk you through it in the RFA, but we can help. So with that overview, I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Haley Bilkinoff here to talk about certification.
Okay, thanks, Tara. So certification, as Tara mentioned, is one of two categories within the CSC grants. And for this category, certification projects focus on assessments, inventories, and planning activities that are part of becoming a certified climate smart community. The award size is between $10,000 and $200,000, and there's 1 million available statewide for these. And they're really the basis for the for future applications in the implementation category, which Josh will cover after me. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so there are 20 specific actions that are eligible for grants within the certification category. And these are directly connected to this Climate Smart Communities program. So here you see 5 pledge elements with the associated actions listed underneath them. PE2 actions cover inventory emissions, such as GHG inventories and climate action plans. And again, as Tara mentioned, we at CDRPC provide free technical support for communities, but if a community is really large and this may be a cumbersome task for us, it may be beneficial to apply under this program. PE3 actions decrease energy use, so those are related to fleet. PE5, climate smart materials management. Refrigerant management program is a new one this year, so I wanted to point that out. And those also cover organics management and construction and demolition. PE6, land use, so comprehensive plan with sustainability elements, complete streets, planning for biking and walking, and natural resource inventories. And finally, PE7 actions, enhance community resilience to climate change. So those cover climate vulnerability, adaptation plans, heat emergency plans, and design for flood mats, freeboard policies, etc. Next slide, please. Okay, so work plans submitted as part of an application for a project under the certification category must include completion of the minimum requirements for selected actions that are outlined in the CSC portal under the subheadings E, how to obtain points for this action, and F, what to submit. So here's a screenshot example of planning for biking and walking and what that looks like. Next slide. And if you're unsure how to find these, you can navigate to the CSC certification portal. It's climatesmart.ny.gov. To view action descriptions, you go to from the top, action and certification button, and then the action on the left. And then you'll be brought to a whole list of the pledge elements with their associated actions. And then when you click on each action, you'll be brought to that action description. Next slide. And I also encourage you to review approved action documentation and reports from existing certified communities. You can do this again from the certification portal, climatesmart.ny.gov, if you select the map on the home page. And then on the next slide, I'll show you how to. So once you click on that map, you can then filter by action on the left-hand side. And then the map will show pins of communities that have completed that action, and you can then view their report and associated documentation. So that's very helpful. Okay. Next, I just wanted to cover some case studies of communities that have earned grants for certification within the certification category. So the first is City of Schenectady, and they were awarded in 2017 for $28,000 to conduct a greenhouse gas inventory and vulnerability assessment. And this is a great case study. I wanted to point out that actions can be bundled together for these grants. So you don't have to pursue just one action, CSC action. You can pursue multiple based on what your goals are for your municipality and what you hope to implement in the future. So these were done in partnership with Climate Action Associates and CDRPC. Next slide, please. Okay, the other case study I wanted to point out was City of Saratoga Springs was also awarded a certification grant in 2017 for $15,000 to conduct a natural resource inventory. And their matching funds were provided by the City of Saratoga Springs and as well as volunteer time. But this was just completed in 2020. And if you're interested in looking at these, you could also do a web search available online. Okay, and next up, I pass it over to Josh.
Thank you, Haley. Hello, everyone. I just want to talk about some of the implementation projects that you can apply for under the CSC grant. So the award size, $50,000 minimum and up to $2 million maximum, with $7 million in fund available statewide. And that also does include the 50% match by communities. And so these grants focus on greenhouse gas mitigation and reduction, as well as climate change adaptation projects. And so I'll just go through briefly some of the greenhouse gas mitigation project types. So the first one being reduction of vehicle miles traveled. So this is trying to limit the number of vehicles on the road. So this would be projects relating to improving public transportation infrastructure, and adjusting a road condition to allow for biking, and they have to demonstrate the access for daily needs. So, for example, a recreational bike path wouldn't necessarily fit under here. So the next project type would be reduction of organic waste. So this is primarily based around trying to deal with organics food waste. So for example, you could implement a pilot project that would look at education and outreach to prevent food waste and reduce the amount of surplus food in the community, increasing the amount of food donated to those in need, implement, expand, or create a pilot program for food waste pickup for resident businesses, institutions, and then construction of new or existing facilities to be able to process some of these food scraps, whether it's at a wastewater treatment plant or a composting facility. The next project type, refrigeration management. So this is seeking to address leakage of refrigerant, which is a known issue in existing HVAC systems, refrigerators, ice rinks, chillers, windows, AC units, and dehumidifiers. So if your community has an ice rink or a large chiller system, or most buildings have HVAC systems, you could apply under here to try to implement newer technologies that have a lower global warming potential, as well as trying to implement a community disposal program to recover refrigerant in appliances, as well as the adoption of code to enable and encourage the use of alternative refrigerant. And so the last project category, renewable energy and low income housing. So this is seeking to implement replicable renewable energy projects. And so that would include solar PV, heat pumps, and wind turbines in public low income housing. The next slide, please. So the climate adaptation project categories fall under 5 different subcategories, and I'll briefly go through those as well. So the first one, increasing or preserving natural resilience. So this could include projects that are looking at nature-based landscape features to decrease the vulnerability of the effects of climate change and improve or facilitate conservation, management, or restoration of a natural floodplain or wetland systems. Second project category would be flood risk reduction. And so this could be relocation of critical municipal facilities or infrastructure to reduce the climate change risk that are posed to these facilities. Next category would be replacing or right-sizing flow barriers. So this would include bridges, culverts, and other flow barriers that protect population centers, critical facilities, infrastructure, and other natural resources. Number 4 is extreme heat preparation. And so this could include trying to implement a cooling or heating center, construction of permanent shade structures, and implementation of other cooling features or programs. And the last one is emergency preparedness. And so this would be a project type that could include emergency warning systems or implementation of emergency preparedness response program, but do exclude radio communications. And I did want to make a note I forgot to mention in the last slide. So these projects, they're seeking for a minimum of 10 years of useful life. And they are certainly looking for shovel-ready projects. And also the design and engineering are limited to a max of the 15% of grant requests. And that also goes for outreach and educational components. So next slide. So I just wanted to go over a couple of case studies from projects in our region. So the first one is from the city of Albany, the Brevator Complete Streets project, which was awarded $2 million in 2021. And so this is looking at transforming a wide vehicle-oriented street, Washington and Western Avenue, into a multimodal corridor that would include pedestrian and bicycle facilities, traffic calming, and also a bus rapid transit service that would serve nearby educational and job centers. Next slide. So this was a firehouse relocation project from the village of Hunter. And this was in 2021. They got almost $2 million. And so this is relocating the firehouse from a floodplain, which is in the area of 100 and 500 year flood hazard area. And the existing site would be replaced with a municipal park with streamside access. And right now the fire station becomes inaccessible even during moderate flood event due to an undersized bridge nearby. Next slide, please. And so the last case study I wanted to show was the town of Chester, which is looking to implement a cooling center, and that is within the municipal building, gymnasium, auditorium, and that project is currently underway. Next slide. And so at this time, we can take any questions that you may have so far.
Great, thanks, Josh. So we do have a question in here. And just so you know, before I mention that, we are going to post this recording and the webinar slides on our website at cdrpc.org. So if you've missed anything or need to go back or check any of the links, please go there. We'll have it up in a few days. So where is the information on implementation projects located? I assume that means like maybe where the detail of the types of projects, which I think is the best resource for that is going to be the RFA, where, you know, kind of lays out the information that Josh went, okay, yes, the grant info, the info that Josh just went through. So the RFA, which is on the Climate Smart, or the DEC's website, lays out the whole grant. It's a many page document, some light reading to kind of get through and understand these, but they do break out the certification grants and the requirements, and then the implementation grants and all of that. So I think Josh is going to put the link in there. Yes. Okay. So you can go right to it.
Yeah, and there's additional details in there that, you know, I didn't cover during the short presentation, but that goes into further detail in the RFA.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
then also I would recommend on that same vein, if anyone is interested in looking at previous projects, that can be also found on the CSC grant website. So you can, you know, see if you have a project that you're interested in, see if maybe one has been funded before. You can reach out to that community and see what their experience has been.
Yeah, and for the whole state, I should mention too, we're just highlighting the capital region because that's where we work, but there's been projects funded all throughout New York State, even different than what we presented to you here. So, you know, you could do some digging and see what other kinds of projects are inspiring to you. And there are, if you're not from this region, there are others of us in other regions of the state. So just connect with us and we can get you connected with your coordinator if you're not in the capital region. I don't see any other questions here. But feel free to reach out to us after the webinar for questions, one-on-one support. We can kind of walk you through what might work for your community. You know, and we can go for there. And again, oh, there's a question here. I was just going to mention it again. This may not be for this year, it may be for next year, but it's worth starting to plan now because they do come quick. Are all of these all reimbursement grants? Yes, they are. That's a very important question, Vanessa. They all need to be completed and, you know, then you'd request for reimbursement from the DEC. So that does mean you have to have some funding up front or a quick turnaround with the vendor. Do you have any examples of heat emergency planning projects? Josh, were you able to come up with any case studies of that when you were looking through?
I did not see them specifically, but I can certainly reach out after the webinar with any specific examples.
Great. Alyssa, we'll get in touch with you and share some examples. And then we've got, I'm hoping to get clear about what's available for non-CSC communities. So all of these projects you can do as a non-CSC community. It's just a matter of the points that you get. You just wouldn't get a few extra points for being not registered or not certified. So there's nothing here that and actually plenty of communities have applied in our region that are not pledged or certified CSCs and received funding in the past. So again, when we can support you as well, even if you're not CSC certified, it just gets you some extra points in this pretty competitive grant funding process. How much money is available for feasibility studies?
I'm not sure if that would cover what I had covered earlier in implementation. The design and engineering maximum 15% of the project cost. So they're really looking for, you know, shovel-ready projects that are going to have, you know, physical impact. So I'm not sure. Maybe I missed it somewhere else, but.
Yeah, unless there's a specific feasibility study that you're looking for, it may be covered under one of the 20 certification actions within the certification category. So you might need more information on that one.
Yeah, Paige, we can get in touch with you about that, and it may be a more specific question. Are there any grants we can get up front before we start a project, like ones for energy audits? Yeah, so I think the NYSERDA to Clean Energy Community Grants is probably the best place for you to go to get kind of the upfront funding. You do still have to apply for those grants, but you know, they're not going to be upfront, and necessarily there's still reimbursement. Although there is the $5,000 grants that I know you've gotten, Melissa, with the town of Kinderhook, the question asker, that those are kind of like paid in advance almost of a project. The energy audits are tough. There's the Flex Tech program. Some of the grants through the Clean Energy Communities program do energy audits. If you're doing a building upgrade, actually they require it. So it's kind of an interesting thing, but I would say that's probably your best bet to pursue it. You know, kind of smaller funding to kind of get a seed and get started with some of these projects. Okay, I don't see any other questions. I'm just going to give it one more second here and make sure nobody's typing furiously trying to get in. For planning on biking and walking, does that have to be related to transit, or can it also apply to forest hiking, walking trails?
So I can cover that. So yeah, it clearly indicates that recreational trails wouldn't be covered. They have to demonstrate, you know, the improvement of access to daily needs. That's what I saw on implementation projects. I'm not sure if there might be some funding under the certification project, but.
And I know like a rail trail was funded, for example. I believe that was one of the projects. I can't remember the community, but I bet, you know, they definitely had to make a case for greenhouse gas emissions reduction. So it's just trying to attach that project to people will use that railroad trail instead of, you know, maybe bike or driving to work. So, you know, whereas I think like recreation is a bit harder to kind of calculate and make the case for. And then is the certification program different than the actions?
I think what's meant from this is the question is whether the Climate Smart Communities program is different than the certification category, maybe, in which case it is. So the Climate Smart Communities program is a program where communities can work through actions and achieve points for those actions and get certified. For these grants, however, there's a certification category that directly relates to the actions within the Climate Smart program, but it isn't part of the certification of the Climate Smart program, if that makes sense.
Right, you can do the action yourself basically and get points in the CSC program, or you can, you know, apply for the potential grant that could help you complete that if you're not able to do it on your own. All right. Well, I think we can close it out unless while I'm saying this, someone else pops up with a question. But again, if anything comes up that's burning, please reach out to us. And we hope to be in touch with you, and we hope to get more than just 14 of the 173 communities in the Capital Region to submit grants in this program, because we think they're very valuable, and you know, the money's out there, so you might as well take advantage of it. So thanks so much for joining us on your beautiful Friday afternoon, and we hope you have really great weekends. Thanks so much.
Everyone.